My name is Estella, and I'm 25 years old. The night my entire life changed began as a simple birthday dinner. Within minutes, though, it became the moment when everything I believed about my life shattered. My parents had insisted on taking me out to celebrate turning 25. That alone felt unusual. In our house, birthdays were never a big deal. Growing up, they were quiet events. Maybe a small cake, a quick happy birthday, and then everyone returned to their normal routines. But this year was different. My parents had reserved a table at an elegant restaurant downtown. Candlelight flickered across polished wooden tables, soft jazz music drifted through the air, and the scent of grilled steak and melted butter filled the room. It felt far more special than anything they had ever done for me before. When I walked in, I thought maybe they had finally decided to celebrate me properly. Maybe they were beginning to see me as an adult. Maybe even as someone important in the family. My mom greeted the hostess with a bright smile that looked slightly forced, while my dad kept glancing around the restaurant like he was waiting for something. At first, I assumed they had planned a surprise. Maybe some friends were about to appear, or maybe they had some big news to share. What I didn't realize was that the announcement they were preparing was about me. We sat down, ordered our meals, and made small talk while the waiter brought our drinks. My parents seemed strangely calm, almost rehearsed. My dad kept adjusting his napkin while my mom slowly sipped her wine, watching me carefully, as if she were studying my reaction. When the waiter finally brought out a small dessert with a candle, a few nearby tables clapped politely as I blew it out. For a brief moment I felt genuinely happy. Turning 25 felt like the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I had a steady job, my own apartment, and plans for the future. I thought this dinner was simply my parents acknowledging that I had grown up. But when the candle smoke faded, the silence at the table became uncomfortable. My dad folded his hands and leaned forward slightly, the same posture he always used when delivering serious news. Then he cleared his throat and said something that instantly destroyed the evening. He looked straight at me and said, "On your 25th birthday, we thought it was finally time to tell you the truth. You're adopted." For a moment I thought he was joking. I even laughed nervously, expecting one of them to smile or say they were kidding. But neither of them did. Their expressions remained completely serious, almost cold, like they were discussing something ordinary. My smile slowly disappeared as the words sank in. My heart began pounding. "Wait, what?" I asked quietly. My mother leaned back in her chair and gave a short laugh, but it wasn't warm. It sounded amused, almost mocking. Then she said the words that hurt even more than the confession itself. "We only kept you for the tax benefits," she said casually. "Now that you're 25, you're basically useless." The restaurant suddenly felt colder. The sounds around us faded into the background as if the entire world had gone distant. I stared at her, trying to understand how someone could say something like that so casually. For 25 years, I believed these people were my parents. The ones who raised me. The ones who were supposed to care about me. And now my entire childhood was being reduced to a financial advantage. My father nodded calmly, as if confirming a business transaction. "We've already filed paperwork to legally disown you," he added. The words hung in the air like a final judgment. My mind raced through memories. Quiet birthdays, distant hugs, the way every achievement I had was met with indifference instead of pride. For years I told myself I was imagining things. But now, sitting there, everything suddenly made sense. For a moment, tears almost filled my eyes. But instead of crying, something unexpected happened inside me. The shock slowly faded, replaced by a calm that even surprised me. Because the truth was, their revelation wasn't entirely new to me. Months earlier, I had begun questioning parts of my past. Small details in my birth records didn't match the stories they told. Curiosity turned into research. Late nights studying documents, phone calls to hospitals, eventually a DNA test. And that search had led me to something life-changing. So instead of arguing or begging, I calmly folded my hands on the table and looked at both of them. "I'm glad you brought that up," I said quietly. Because I already found my biological family. Pause. They're actually here in this restaurant tonight. For the first time that evening, both of their faces turned pale. Just moments earlier they had looked relaxed, almost amused. Now they froze. My father's hand stopped halfway to his glass, while my mother blinked in disbelief. The silence became heavy. My mother recovered first. She leaned back and gave a dismissive laugh. "Estella," she said, swirling her wine, "don't invent ridiculous stories. It's embarrassing." My father nodded. "We've already told you the truth tonight," he added. "There's no need for dramatics." I watched them carefully. They believed they were still in control. They thought I was bluffing. But they were wrong. I leaned slightly forward and glanced toward the restaurant entrance. "I'm not bluffing," I said calmly. My mother rolled her eyes. "Estella, stop this nonsense." Before she finished speaking, the restaurant door opened. Small group walked inside. I had been watching the clock all evening, waiting for that exact moment. The hostess greeted them and then pointed toward our table. Without realizing it, my parents followed her gesture. First they looked confused. But as the group walked closer, confusion slowly turned into shock. The woman leading them had deep auburn hair, the exact same shade as mine. Her green eyes looked almost identical to the ones I saw in the mirror every day. Behind her stood a tall man with calm eyes and sharp cheekbones that looked strikingly similar to my own. And beside them was a young man who looked so much like me that anyone could guess we were related. The woman stopped a few steps from our table. Tears filled her eyes. "Estella?" she asked softly. I stood up. For a moment the entire restaurant disappeared. The music, the conversations, the clinking glasses, everything faded away. I nodded slowly. "Hi." She covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. The man beside her placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, though his own eyes looked emotional. Behind me, my adoptive parents sat in stunned silence. I turned back toward them. My mother's confident smile had vanished. My father stared at the strangers with a tight expression. "What is this?" he demanded. "The truth," I replied calmly. The auburn-haired woman stepped forward. "We've been searching for our daughter for 25 years, she said softly. "A hospital paperwork mistake separated us when she was born. We only recently found records that helped us track her down." My adoptive parents sat there speechless. Just minutes earlier they believed they had all the power. Now that power was gone. I picked up my purse and looked directly at them. "You said you only kept me for tax benefits," I said calmly. "Well, congratulations. Your investment period is officially over." They said nothing. For the first time in my life, they had no words left. I turned away and faced the family I had finally found. My biological mother stepped forward and wrapped me in a tight hug. Unlike the cold embraces I remembered growing up, this one felt warm, real. My biological father smiled gently. "We reserved a table across the room," he said softly. "We were hoping you might join us." I glanced one last time at the table where my old life had ended. Then I walked across the restaurant with the family I had just found, toward a completely new beginning.